Good job. You ready?
Stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good night. If you could please silence your electronic devices, that would be greatly appreciated. Good evening, everyone. I call Village of Massena Board of Trustees meeting for February 19, 2019 to order. Roll call, Ms. Winston.
Here.
Mr. Carville.
Here.
Mr. DeShays.
Here.
Mr. LeBeer.
Here.
I am here. We have a complete streets presentation by Clarkson CEM Consulting Group. I'm going to turn this over first to Karen Page. Karen is the Community Coordinator for St. Louis County Health Initiatives. She has been working very well with us on a number of projects. So, Karen, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for your time today. Glad to be here to give a short presentation about the complete streets work that we have done in the village in coordination with village trustee members and other community members. My name is Karen Page. I work for the St. Lawrence Health Initiative. We're based in Potsdam, and I co-administer a grant called Creating Healthy Schools and Communities. It's funded by the New York State Department of Health. And one of the strategies of that grant is to work with municipalities on writing, adopting, and then implementing complete streets policies. Well, the Village of Massena, as you know, has a complete streets policy in your local law. We worked with the village a number of years ago. We hosted a training, and then the policy was written, and then you adopted it. We're now working on implementing that policy. The Health Initiative funded the purchase of a traffic radar signal system that's in place on Bailey Avenue. Is that Jefferson? Help me out. Jefferson Elementary School. But in exploring other ways to implement the complete streets policy to make pedestrian enhancements throughout the village, we turned to a team from Clarkson University who then inventoried sections of your municipality looking at all of the pedestrian enhancements. And so they are here this evening to present that work to you. And with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Eric Backus and his team.
Okay. Thank you, Karen. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Board of Trustees members, as well as staff. Had a privilege of working with some of you during this process, so really appreciate that. I'm Professor Eric Backus. I am a faculty member with Clarkson University in the Director of Construction Engineering Management Program. Part of what we do is we use student experiential learning, i.e. doing work with community members and communities to give them experiences so they can go on to their communities and become engineers and things like that they want to be and help out the local communities. And so I have with me Professor William Olson, who is one of the colleagues there, and Sam Skufko, who is one of the students who was actually working on a project here in Massena this summer. So what we'll do is I'll get started. Professor Olson and I will do a few things, and Sam will actually explain a lot of his work. So you get his perspective of actually walking every inch of sidewalk that is in Massena for your perspective. And he'll let you know lots of little things about them as we go through the conversation this evening. So we did look at the full municipality in the process of doing this. We actually did it under two different task orders. One was looking at safe routes to schools, which is really important for our young people to be able to get to and from their schools if they want to by pedestrian pathways, and looking at the challenges specifically around certain areas that are important, high school, junior high, and so on. And we also then had a focus around Water Street Park. As you know, there's an initiative there to improve Water Street Park. And so we looked at it. By the time we looked at the circles we would build around it, we basically said, hey, we'll just do the whole village. So you got a full village analysis out of this. So that's kind of what we did. So you can see here we worked on getting the inventory of several different items to be able to do an analysis of how complete your streets were, specifically for biking and for pedestrian infrastructure. So what is complete streets? I know the mayor explained to me that not everybody was aware of all that was going on with this. So first I'll talk about what is a complete street. The idea of complete streets is thinking about streets that are not just for your local car. Obviously, we used to have a GM plant here in Massena. That was an important part of our economy here. Sadly, they left. It'd be nice to have them back, wouldn't it? But having motorized vehicles, we built a lot of our roadways around that, but as we do things in our downtown areas, more urbanized cores of villages and towns, it's important to recognize there's other users. So I mentioned on here non-vehicular transport, i.e. bikes, skateboards, scooters, things like that. Obviously your pedestrians, that's a lot of folks, and especially as we look at the population and how it's aging, how they're able to get around. And of course our children are part of that. And then public transportation, there's busing services, shuttle services, and things like that. Obviously this is not a heavily urbanized course, you don't have rail and things like that, but you certainly have those kind of services that might be more low density. And so the idea is to build our streetscape, build the streets around all of these different modes so that you can take advantage of those in ways that are very comprehensive and allow for opportunities for things to grow in different ways and have people to get from point A to point B the ways they want to. So Bill, want to talk a little bit about GIS?
Sure. Yeah, I'm a professor at Clarkson, and I teach courses on GIS and mapping and surveying. So for those not familiar with geographic information systems, it's really just a computerized system for collecting, maintaining, and analyzing any sort of geographic data. So the data could be anything from utility lines underground, streets, sidewalks, crosswalks, to much larger projects, soil, land use, up to the state level. But really what it's trying to do is just make information easily accessible and able to be analyzed, so we can readily calculate lane miles of streets, miles of sidewalks, and categorize them based on condition or other factors.
So why don't you explain a little bit what's on the slide here, specifically on the right, what is that, because that might be important to them.
Yeah, so if you're not familiar, the Development Authority of the North Country hosts a couple different municipalities' GIS data. And I'm fairly certain there's quite a bit of Village of Massena data in there. That's just a screenshot from downtown Canton showing all of their underground utilities. But we've done work with them, Village of Potsdam. So not only can you collect and display the data and have it available to citizens and decision makers, but we've done analysis projects looking at where water pipes have broken, correlating that with soils, and age of the infrastructure. So on the left, it's just kind of an organizational slide showing how GIS layers are stored. Basically, everything is just stored in a separate layer. So all the layers we collected are stored in one big database, but they're separated by the type of feature. So we have features for sidewalks, crosswalks, curb ramps, and so forth in this project. So hopefully that's.
So the intent of this was our project was to go out and build those layers for different aspects of what we're trying to do for complete streets, looking at all different things. We had a cloud-based server we had available that we have through our software. One of the nice things about having a school that's teaching this stuff is we teach our students on some of the latest technologies. You're able to utilize that. Two students, Sam, and one other student, Ellie, a young lady, were able to go around and literally collect all that this summer. And they were producing things into the summer, late summer, early fall. We did a presentation with the mayor, the police, and so forth to kind of pass that along in the October timeframe, and we thought it appropriate to come back to the public board to let you know what's going on and give you a public presentation on this as well. So Sam, what was it like walking around Massena in the summertime?
Well, it was really good exercise. Good way to put it. It wasn't too bad. I mean, you can get outside. It's usually sunny, and then you kind of just. After a while, it gets a little boring, but you walk up and down the streets and take a lot of photos.
Then we came back in and did a lot of analysis with this. So Sam, what's this a picture of?
So these are the sidewalks. So as well as taking GPS information for these specific features, we also took pictures of all of them. And this is just a ranking, I guess. So we all put them on a scale of 1 through 5, 5 being the best, 1 being the worst. You can see in the top left, that's overgrowth on all the sidewalk. It would be really hard to access that with a motorized wheelchair. That was kind of one of the biggest things that made us prioritize that in the lower section. And then obviously on the right there, those are new sidewalks. So excellent condition, very few cracks, and as well, most of these had very good curb ramps.
So the pictures you're seeing are out of the databases we're going to provide it, so that is available, and we'll talk more about how that's available to you at the end of the presentation. So this is your streets we're looking at.
Yeah, and basically how we've organized it, we show a couple pictures first, just to show like how Sam was able to rank them from good, fair, to poor. And then on the following slide, I know they're kind of tough to see on that projector, but each sidewalk segment is color-coded as to its condition. And then we did a little bit of summarization and just tabulated the percentage of each sidewalk ranking. So you see 50% of the sidewalks are ranked as good condition, excellent, about 12%. And then as Sam was collecting data, he also just marked down material, width, and a couple other factors. You can see that most sidewalks are concrete in the village. Only 4% are ranked as need replacement. And you can kind of see, it's again difficult to tell on this map here, but in the red are areas that the sidewalks are in worse condition, need color-coded best.
So we provided for each of the elements, you're going to have a map here that shows the whole village, what's there. So there's a lot of white. I was kind of noticed that. There are spots there are none. And so we'll talk about that later in the presentation on thinking about what you can do to improve things like safe routes to school or access to Water Street Park. We'll talk about that a little later. What's this there, Sam?
So just as with the sidewalks, we also took pictures of the curb ramps because this is kind of what leads into the accessibility of these roadways and pathways for pedestrians. And these curb ramps obviously came in a various of condition. Obviously the left being better, those are newer, they have the detectable warnings, so people with the vision impairment can tell when they're coming to an intersection. And we also have needs replacement curb ramps. These are also very overgrown. A lot of these had not an appropriate slope down to the road, so there was a bit of a drop off where someone in a wheelchair would have trouble getting over that or even up onto it. And just overall to the point where you would need to replace this in order to bring it up to any sort of standards.
And the way we sort of organize these, rather than showing each curb ramp individually, because we just got a little cluttered, basically we just scored each intersection by the average of all the curb ramps at that intersection. So it's a little misleading because over on the right-hand side there are no curb ramps whatsoever, so they all get low scores because they're not there. But each of the curb ramps is still scored as a separate point, and that's what's tabulated in the table there on the right. So you can see it's just a beneficial way to look for areas that might need work in the future, where to prioritize spending money on replacement of curb ramps. Yeah, and just the percentages are there as well. Again, only 2% need replacement, 28% are in excellent condition.
Sam?
So again, this was another feature that we did were the crosswalks. And most of the intersections around your town didn't have crosswalks, except for your main road, which is obviously where they're most important. And as you can see, there is a decent difference between a poor and excellent, obviously. A lot of it comes down to paint. Some of the newer crosswalks in your area did have, I believe it's like a reflective silicone bead that they put down in the paint.
Thermoplastic's a technical name.
Sorry.
Okay.
I didn't know what it was. All I know
On
is
the
I
edge,
almost-
you're the student.
I almost slipped on it one time, so I was like, it's very slippery. But as you can see, you got your excellence crosswalks. Those are the ones that have been repainted recently, and you have ones that are worn down over repetitive traffic.
And you can, again, because the photos are in the database, you can look at which ones are done which way, and then which treatment you have. This was at one time a high visibility marked one with thermoplastics. This has been worn. This is a newer version of the high visibility. So there's different ways you can do this. You may decide in certain areas you want to do different colors. This is by the high school. I know that because I know where that's at. So you can know where some things are, and you can start thinking about maybe neighborhoods get different markings. It's something you can think about with this plan. How do you do that down the road in terms of new markings? So Bill?
Yeah, and again, the maps are kind of small here, but there's a total of how many crosswalks total? Like just under 100, I think, right in there. Again, as Sam said, they follow the main streets, and we just kind of did a little zoomed-in version there to the right. So you can see the ones in green are in excellent condition. There's certain intersections where all the crosswalks are worn down. Good places to target for looking at.
And we did do maps for each of the high schools separately, or each of the schools, I should say, this high school schools separately. So the high school and junior high got lumped together, and we have a map for that locates in that location. We also provided one for the 2 elementary schools as well, so you can look at those specific areas. This is an area where you're having students go across the road. It's probably one of the most sensitive areas to think about from a safety school perspective.
So we logged the crosswalk symbols and buttons separately. These are obviously the buttons. As you can see, some of them are attached to the poles that have the lights on them, as you can see on the right. On the left there, some of them are individual. And again, these came in not too much of a very condition compared to other features such as sidewalk, where we did have knee replacement. Most of these were in pretty good condition, and then all the way up into excellent, as you can see on right there.
So again, most of your signal lights are, as Bill say, mainly on the main roads.
Yeah, in terms of signal lights and buttons, they were all good or excellent condition. About 50 miles.
And then there were some that were clustered together, so this in box here is just trying to show the clusters around those that were in this area. And you probably recognize what that is. It's around a certain circle you went for around town. So, Sam and Bill, what are your thoughts here about this?
Sure. Well, Sam, you walked all the over 50 miles of sidewalk is logged there. So it's quick.
He's a 50-mile badge from Boy Scouts out of this.
I wear it with pride. It's on my other jacket.
So we provided, it was all put into a database, and we asked Star over at Dank to pull this into your database for that at Dank, so you have access to it. So during the process of doing that, it's in the many queues of things that were done last summer. We're still working on that. We also provided a set of maps to the mayor and to the staff so they have those so they can do that static maps. And we're glad to provide additional copies as need be and provide that. And again, all the photos are built into the database, so you'll have that for your future. They are all timestamps, you can see in the bottom right here, so that you know exactly what it is. So if your DPW is going out and doing maintenance, you can go overlay that and put a new photo on it, and it'll be timestamped similarly. Something that can be an ongoing database for you for all your public works efforts. So this is a map. So this is where we get into some more analysis. When we started looking at what you can do as a community to start improving your complete streets. So we started looking at where, first off, proposed sidewalks we would recommend you start thinking about now in the front load. You can see in red, obvious kind of area near your high school is an area that was built without sidewalks at all. And so this is an area that has a lot of students going to and from. Typically older kids tend to get to be less busing, and it would make sense that that's an area. Right now they're walking in the street. If you went down there, and it's been icy lately, probably not the safest thing on the planet for them to be doing. We should definitely think about that area. You can also see select areas within this area where there's really a lot of needs replacement or completely, really poor situations. We recommend you take a look at those and segment those. You may need to start looking targeted about some of these in terms of where you get the best bang for your buck. It's also have to look with what makes sense with those local neighborhoods and neighborhood leaders, what would be their focus amongst those particular activities. But those would be the ways that you really can see quite a bit of work that can be done that can make some significant impact specifically for your pedestrian streetscape. We also then ranked each roadway, so we looked at specifically places to put sidewalks, but then we looked at each street, and we said, okay, what's the ranking of that street? So we did an overall, so this is the ramps, this is the crosswalks, this is sidewalks, this is all those aspects, and say, hey, where are you at? And you can see on here, lots of green, lots of yellow, so there's some things you can certainly improve. There are a few red roadways, like an example right there, that segment right there is a red road with the whole road. So the sidewalks are bad, the crosswalks are bad, there's maybe not a crosswalk at all. So these are areas where you may want to think of. So you may want to correlate these two things together and say, hey, these are kind of how we recommend if you're going to prioritize where you would want to go in terms of making improvements. You may want to look at a whole street and try to do that as a street project. And it's a nice thing that you can think about in terms of bringing that community together. Hey, this is a street you can identify. This is an interesting one because it's right near an elementary school. It's a great place to target. Hey, what can we do together with the school to think about what can be done to improve that? Again, a lot of students may be walking to and from. So think of the whole street, not just that. So if you really kind of look at both sidewalks, again, there's a little bit of red down there, with then overall street, gives you a really good perspective. Where can you target best bang for your buck as you look at doing that, as you think about your improvements for complete streets? Then we also did a blow-up specific around the Water Street area, right? Trying to identify that. What can you do? You can see that there are different circled intersections, and we just circled them. They're not necessarily areas that are of concern, but you can notice they're actually in pretty good condition from those particular circular areas. It's really some of the interlacing roadways, like for instance, there's a sidewalk that ends here, doesn't complete there. I know there's an effort to do something right here. That would be an area that we logically to start thinking about to do things. Because there's already some pretty good streetscape there that would make that kind of work really well together. And again, this is part of that urban core. You may want to try to emphasize that to make it work really well. On the other hand, there are some streets out here that could use some love again as part of that larger effort. What are you thinking about here? Is it a priority or not? Something to think about. But again, Orvis Street makes some sense. It's doing pretty well. Main Street, this is Water Street. Those are some things to think about that you want to really think about within this realm of what you're trying to do with the Park Street area, no, the Water Street area. So with that, any last words, gentlemen? We're here for your questions. None. We've stumpified you.
Thank you for your work on all those tedious sidewalks and all of that. That's awesome.
Thank you, ma'am.
We appreciate your efforts. I mean, we adopted the Complete Streets policy, and this was the next step in finding where we should be focusing, and that would be our intent as we do infrastructure planning now. We have a much easier way to take a look at it, so this will be very beneficial to us going forward. We appreciate it.
Glad to do it for you. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Karen, thank you.
You're welcome.
We won't be offended if you don't stay for the rest of our meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Approval of meeting minutes for June 19, 2018 and July 5, 2018.
So moved.
Mr. Beer, second by Mr. Deshays. Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Report of officers and committees. We have the treasurer's report. Carl Seyfarth from Seyfarth and Seyfarth CPAs is here for a presentation. Mr. Seyfarth, welcome.
Good evening. In all the years I've been here, I've never had podium comments. We've got 3 documents to go over, one really thick one and 2 much thinner ones. I'm going to start off on the thick one. That is your audited financial statements for the year. And I'm going to start on page 1. Don't worry, we're not going to do every page. Every third. The thing I always like to point out to every board I meet with every year is on page 1, and whose responsibility these financial statements are. They're not mine, they're your financial statements, they're prepared by your management. And for the first time too, we did a pretty darn good job on getting that stuff together. We helped a little bit, gave some suggestions, but for the most part, he did a good job. Having said that, I'm not going to let him off on keeping going and getting more and more training every year. There's always things that are changing, happening, ways to do them better. And actually, I emailed in a thing for a book that we found to be very helpful. But a lot of information putting things together. Our job in this whole process is to come look at the financial statements, which for the most part were ready when we got here, and audit them and say, do we agree or do we disagree with them? Very seldom will we disagree. And you have what's called a clean opinion this year. We think your financial statements are fairly presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Now I'm going to jump back to page 26. Not quite at the third page. This is your statement of net position, and it's on a full accrual basis, which means all of your assets, all of your liabilities are included in this particular financial statement. The reports you get every month are what's called the modified accrual basis, which is almost a cash basis. It's very short-term things, and it's meant to correspond with your budget. This is designed to give a full picture of your financial position. If you look down at the very bottom, the last number, it's a very ugly number. It's a minus $47 million. The reason for that is primarily up about a third of the way up there, the $62 million other post-employment benefits. That's what the actuaries have estimated that your liability is going to be for the health insurance benefits that are for retirees, and it's even for actives as they're earning those potential benefits down the road. It's a very complicated calculation that they do, and it fluctuates every year based on what rates of return are and different things. So it can change quite a bit depending on the contracts that you have, the health insurance benefits, and the economy. So there's nothing you can really do about that except in contract negotiations. But that's really why you're in that negative net position. On page 27, this is your income statement on a full accrual basis, taking into account all that depreciation, the expense of those other post-employment benefits and similar type items. And you look at that and you'll see the second line from the bottom is a $45 million prior period adjustment. Normally people think of prior period adjustments as, oh my God, somebody really messed up big time. That's not what this is. They changed the rules for how people account for the post-employment benefits. And it used to be there was a certain amount that you were bringing in over a 30-year period. Well, last year they changed their mind. They said, no, we want to bring it all in at once, and we're accounting for that as a prior period adjustment. So it was nothing you guys did or any mistakes that were made. That's how they told us they had to account for that. Any questions so far?
So the change you're referring to is because of the Gatsby 75?
Yeah.
And that's literally everyone had to face that change.
Every governmental entity in the United States is dealing with
Right,
that.
so it's not a Village of Massena issue, it's a reporting standard change for all municipalities.
All state and local governments. The only ones that get out of this is the federal government, and they don't know how to account for anything. So. The next sheets are your regular financial statements. These are the things that you get reports on periodically through the years. We really didn't throughout the year. We didn't really have any real big changes in that, some cosmetic items, and there are a couple really strange types of transactions that we talked about and straightened up a little bit. It's kind of strange if you have the sewer fund and it pays down debt, it doesn't go in this. There's places to put it, but they're not obvious. So,
But they were put in the appropriate places.
yes, they're in the appropriate places and accounted for properly.
I initially had it set up in the capital project where.
No, I know, I just wanted to clarify for those who may not have regular access.
Yeah. But they're relatively strange transactions. They don't happen that terribly often. Does anybody have any questions on any of those statements? Your fund balance appears fairly healthy. I wouldn't get rid of it too quickly. I'd rather have money in the bank than not. And there's a negative fund balance on the capital project. That's because you haven't done the final borrowing yet. That's pretty normal for a capital project. Notes are spectacularly interesting reading. And we won't go there. But they pretty much describe the accounting policies and give more details into the actual analysis. Unless anybody has any particular questions on those, they're pretty much the same as in the last few years, except for the new Gatsby 75 years. There's no real findings except the one we have every year, which is basically to remind you that you're a small shop. You've got some internal controls. You could have segregation to do these issues. Doesn't mean anybody's doing anything wrong, but it means keep your eyes open, ask good questions. If things don't sound right, smell right, follow up on them. Don't get them. As a board, you're an important part of the control structure, so just keep your eyes and ears open. Center page. This one has probably a bit of more meat to it. The long and short of it is, as we've talked already, staying up to date with financial reporting, keeping more training, continuing the cross-training that you've done. And also, you've got a new computer system. We've talked about this in the past, too. make the most of it. Don't say, okay, we got a new system, we've been doing it this way for forever, let's make the new system do what the old system did. Let's look at it, look at its capabilities, and make the most out of it. We notice there's a lot of spreadsheets being done. For me personally, I don't care much for spreadsheets because every time we use a spreadsheet, a mistake gets made. The formula isn't updated properly, they don't add right. Something goes wrong. So every time you use a spreadsheet, you have to consider there's an updated for risk. These newer systems are pretty darn good, and they can generate reports that you can use so you don't have to generate spreadsheets. They work with a lot of schools, and what they're doing is in all their different departments, they've got a license so the people can actually go in, look at what they're using it for, seeing what's being posted, ensure that things are getting posted properly, managing their budgets through that system. Some of them, or all of the schools that I'm working with, at the department level, they will go in and they'll do a purchase requisition. It'll flow to the department head, be approved electronically, go through the purchasing agent. That gets approved electronically, and then the purchase order goes out. And all that's done electronically. It just kind of flows through. They also can attach the documents that they were using. So at the department level, if they went out and got three quotes, they attach the documentation. It follows right in the PDF format through the system, making everything very easy to review and well documented. As an auditor, I can come in if they have an audit trail, and I can say, okay, who's approving this? Are the right people approving things? And I can look at the whole population of things that are being approved. So there's a lot of benefit to really using the systems to their best capability. The other danger that you have, especially when you have a new system, is keeping the accesses too broad. Which, if you have, say, okay, we're going to segregate, have internal control segregation of duties, and we line up only certain people can do certain things, but we forget to go and look at the computer system and say, okay, wait a minute, we have to segregate that out of the computer system to keep everything open. We don't have that segregation of duties that looks like we do. The same thing for check signing. It used to be always manually signed checks, and now we're signing them in the system. So we looked at it. Kevin called the company to say, how can we make sure that my signature is being safeguarded so it can only be used when I want it to be used, which is really a critical thing, because otherwise you can sign checks. Let's see. I think that's about most of it. Any questions on that?
Questions?
Overall, what do you do find?
Overall, I think it's pretty good. If it weren't, I would have called you and we would be having another meeting before we had this one. Okay. The last thing was, we did our review of the Justice Court, and there were no big surprises in here. They seem to know a lot of stuff. In the past, there were some things being done late, but at this point, they're pretty well caught up. And we'll see what happens when the next new justice comes in. But overall, that went really well. They did a good job in having everything together there, too.
Carl, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Enjoy working with you. Thank you, Kevin.
Yep. Mr. Feld, Treasurer's report.
The balance sheet and other reports have been put into your boxes in the last week or so. You can see there the summary by funds, revenue and expenses, and where we're at year to date. The projections were updated Monday, yesterday, so I think we reported that action. So we'll go on to item 12. Number 3, the departmental and agency budgets have all been entered in. I did it differently this year. Because of the new system, I entered it directly into the system. It gives me a little more detail versus putting it into a spreadsheet first and then importing it in. So that way, we go to look back 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, we can actually see what was detailed for certain lines to give a more breakdown. So
We already eliminated one spreadsheet.
Just one.
yeah.
We just got the report. He's already on the ball.
So I think that'll help going down the line, especially if we open it up to departments being able to look at information in the system, they can see that kind of detail. So that'll be useful down the road. And I think it really is, whether I entered it into a spreadsheet and then imported it, I was still entering it in. So I just entered it right into the system. And it's pretty conducive to entering it in. So that has all been entered in for the most part. There are still some revenues and some expenses that I haven't gotten in there yet. One being the fringe benefits, health insurance and all those, because that's kind of a big calculation to get an idea of where everybody's at in terms of distribution for the funds that are in, to try and do that breakdown. So once I get that in, I'm hoping in the next week or two, I think the budget should be pretty much entered. And then just start reviewing it to make sure I hit everything. Quarterly sales tax was in from the county, and it's up $21,673 from the same period last year. We budgeted $1.815 million for the year. So right now, year to date, it's up just over 4% from last year. So if you were to crunch that out for the year, we would be at roughly 1.9 million, about 4.69% over what we budgeted. Sorry, 4.8 over what we budgeted. But again, it's early to tell. There's still 2 more payments to go. But the good thing is that we're ahead. On February 5th, we paid the $52,000 principal payment on the short-term financing for the CWSRF project. That's the fund that Carl was talking about, the capital project that's in the hole, because we haven't borrowed, we haven't had money for anything. So we have concluded it, spent about $2.7 million. There's just over $600,000 and some thousand, $656,000 on a grant that's being utilized. So we're going to end up borrowing just over $2,005,000. And I believe it's a 0% loan, essentially, through the EFC. So we don't have any interest. I did take it out for 30 years, but I made it clear that if we could pay it off early, was there any penalties? And they said no. So I said, let's go with 30 years. I think the payment monthly, or sorry, annual is going to be about $65,000 to $70,000. So if they said if you want to make extra payments on it, you can. So first action item I've got is accepting the draft audit report that Carl presented.
So moved.
Mr. Levere. Second by Mr. Carvel. Discussion?
That was incredibly thorough.
The other thing is, it's not just a matter of collecting documents, right? They sit down with department heads, staff. I mean, it's a thorough audit.
Yeah.
There's a lot of discussion that goes on behind the scenes of the audit, so we're pleased with it. Further discussion?
I'm pleased it's over.
What's that?
I'm pleased it's over.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Number 2 is the independent independent accountant report for the Village Justice Court record.
So moved.
Mr. Levere, second by Mr. Carvel. Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Any questions for Mr. Fowler? Thank you. Committee reports, code enforcement. Mr. Carvel, Mr. Levere.
We have a discussion item a little later.
There's a couple items later. Economic Development Committee, Ms. Winston, Mr. Levere. Fire Committee, Mr. Carvel, Mr. Levere. Personnel Committee, Ms. Winston, Mr. Deshays. Police Committee, Mr. Carvel, Ms. Deshays. Mr. Shays.
No, nothing at this time. Talk to the lieutenant. I guess we could say everything's normal. That's the word you use or not. You use that. Okay. Thank you.
Recreation Commission, Mr. Shays.
Yeah, things are winding down at the arena. Ice skating's just about finished, and hockey season's just about finished. Tomorrow night, Massena's playing Potsdam at the arena, and from there they go into the finals. The ice skating show went well attended. There's a broom ball tournament scheduled for March the 8th. The outside rinks are open. We had a long time to get the weather cold up, but when it came in a hurry. So we got rinks at Howard Street, Dafford Place, and Alcoa. And the ice is removed early in March.
Thank you. Street Committee, Ms. Winston, Mr. Lugar.
Still looking into the issue on Irwin with parking. I took pictures last weekend. It's Friday night, Sunday morning, but no driveways are blocked. There's just excess parking, so I don't know what we can do about that. There was just the one complaint, no one else came forward. So at this time, I think we can just table it.
Leave it as is at this point. Okay, thank you. Water and Sewer Committee, Ms. Winston, Mr. Lugar.
There's been a few issues in the town with water main breaks, but Haas and his team is taking care of it very quickly, even on weekends, so that's good. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Initial public comment period. As always, we ask you to please stand, state your name for the record. Please do so at the podium. Initial public comment.
Hi, my name is Gina Snyder, and I work at the Visitors Motel in Massena. And I really enjoyed the presentation on the streets of Massena. It seems like a very good tool for future or even current decisions or forecasting. And I'm encouraging, and I'm asking if you wouldn't mind having them present to the consolidation team of the village and town that are considering, looking at all aspects of possibly consolidation, because the one key point that they're keep pointing to is the sidewalk need in the west end of Massena, and that seems to be a stopping point for the consolidation in years past, that area. So I really, they said they would go and talk to them. I was wondering if you would encourage that as a presentation for the consolidation committee.
Yeah, I think if that committee, anything that committee requests, we will make available to them. What I'm not going to do is recommend to them how to do their job. We want to stay at arm's length from that, so.
Okay.
So, you know who's on the committee, you're welcome to communicate with them if you'd like.
Yeah, and just give them their card and say
Sure.
this could be informative.
Sure.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Further public comment?
I guess this don't work anyway. Well, for you people that don't know me, I'm John McDougall. I live at 11 Liberty Ave here in Massena. I've lived at 11 Liberty Ave since 1976. It's my home. It's not the best neighborhood in Massena, and it ain't the worst. The rumor on the street is that somebody's going to take Valhaven Nursing Home, which is adjacent to my property, and turn it into a 60-bed rehabilitation for drug users. I know nothing's going to be solved here tonight. I haven't heard anything from the zoning board yet. But I want you to know my feelings on this. We try to keep our neighborhood halfway decent, and it's very hard in that side of town. But I do not want this in my backyard. I don't want to move out of Massena. I've been in here since I got married, probably 56. Like I said, I just want the board to be aware of what people are thinking about doing. And I want you to know my feelings. I'm not against drug rehabilitation, but there's a place for it. Now, out in the country, ain't gonna bother me. But I'm thinking of every night, every day, we're going to have to contend with this every season. I think it's going to be just so the board's aware of what's going down. I know she lives on Woodlawn. She lives in front of the place, and there's no place for parking over there. And the traffic is terrible.
I'm Julia, and I live across the street from the Valhaven. I don't know if you board members know about this, but it was on the radio yesterday. That's how I found out.
And what they say on the radio.
They said that the woman, I thought they said Jennifer White, I'm not sure because I wasn't paying much attention until they said that she was going to open a 60-bed drug rehabilitation center in Valhaven. They said if you want to go and talk to her, go over there and see what she's doing. She hasn't got zoning for anything yet. She's got nothing, but she is working over there. They are working over there, yeah. Pretty sneaky, when I say. But, you know what Massena's gonna become? What is that? What is drug rehabilitation? You go there instead of jail, maybe? Is that what they do? I don't know. Mr. What, is that what they do? They go there, they were sentenced like to there instead of jail?
Well, that depends on, it's a case-by-case basis with the person. Sometimes the offender, if they're selling drugs, then depends on their criminal history. Sometimes they will be sent to a rehabilitation.
Right.
So, but a lot of times rehabilitation centers are for people that don't sell drugs, and for people that are suffering from the illness of being addicted to those drugs. So they're not criminals.
What happens when they come out? They stay around Messina, they go back on it. Now, a lot of them do, 50 to 60% go back on it.
I don't have those numbers.
They stay
so
around
I can't comment
Messina.
on that.
What's Messina going to become? Worse than it is now. I'm sorry.
Well,
I don't know if
it
you
could
gentlemen
be-
knew this was happening or not, but.
it could be a good thing, but I don't think that's the right location.
Now, this end of our street is a lot different from the other end. There's 12 houses, it's very quiet. We're lucky if we have a car going down at night, summer or winter. It's very quiet down there. Yeah, we got a professor that works at college, the professor at Potsdam that lives there. We got all working families or older people. It's very quiet, and they're all kept up down there, very good. So I know you can't do anything, but we just want to give our input about it.
Sure, and if I could just for clarification so you understand, so that is zoned residential B,
Right.
which means single or double
Yeah.
residency. So for anything different to come in there, and if you were to look at the code book, there are some exceptions, but it would require a site plan review and approval, which would require the new owner to go to the planning board to get that approval. That's a public process. Neighbors are notified. It's not done in secrecy.
Ain't done that yet.
Right. The other option, if it doesn't meet what's already written into the code as a potential, then it would require a zoning change. And again, it's a very public process. You'll have lots of opportunity, or at least you'll have opportunity to give your public input there.
Yeah.
But we certainly welcome you anytime to come on village issues and speak to us on it.
What's the planning? What do you mean the planning, the first statement you made? What's the planning part of it?
Zoning is more changing of the codes, changing of the laws.
I know that.
Planning is more they look at the site plan. Does it meet fire code? Does it meet parking restrictions? Is there enough parking? Those types of things. So the planning board, which is appointed by this body, that represents us on the planning board, look at all of those types of things to make sure that, so it's essentially safety. Code enforcement would be heavily involved in anything that occurred. So it's really early in the process. The property has sold, I understand, and I know they have some ideas for it, but it's a very public process, and the neighbors are notified when anytime there's a change in those types of things, the neighbors are notified to give you an opportunity to come and to be heard.
What about it being loaded with asbestos? And it's loaded.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but, that's a code issue and things like that.
I know they started working because they got stuff thrown out in the front yard of the trash bin already. And I know they haven't gotten in and talked to anybody about zoning or anything. But it was on the radio yesterday morning. That's how I found out.
One other thing I'd like to ask you, I want to make sure. On Liberty Ave, the street is terrible over there. I've been after the village to get it fixed for years, and we can't seem to get it done. Last year, they had some leftover asphalt, and they put it, there's a little street up the right side of Liberty Ave, about 190, 200 feet. They put it in the wrong place. And it was probably between 9 and 50. The road is so deteriorated there that each road is supposed to be crowned in the center down to the curb. And then there's curb supposed to be, the road is supposed to be on an angle to the main homes. It's not. So in front of 9 Liberty Ave, there's a runoff from there's no houses on the other side of the street, and there's railroad tracks there, and all the water runs right down in front of 9 Liberty Ave, next door to me to the right. And it comes so terrible over there, so we're going to kill the way in this time of year. Now, I think there's a water leak under there, but I guess Hoss says there isn't. But if it's a drain off, then it's kind of the road, because the road ain't put in there for the drainage. And I would like you to take a serious look at this when it comes time to blacktop the roads this spring.
Okay.
That in just one block. And that would save a lot of time. Now, the village is up there 10, 15 times a week with the offloader, taking the ice off, trying to make it safe for people to drive. They put barricades out there. And it's every week. You know, in the last month, I bet you they've been there 15 years. And that's all it costs. If we fix the road, I think we got the problem. And the other thing, I just want to let you know what's going on.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Padula.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Any further public comment?
I'm not sure if this is the right time to come up here. My name is Tim Quinville. I'm the chief of the fire department. I just want to make a statement that the volunteers are in favor of changing the code for outside burning. As everyone knows that lives in Massena, you can drive around anytime during the summer or fall, and there's a lot of fires, outside fires, that don't get called in. The ones that we go to, that we're called to, that's because usually they have a bad neighbor that doesn't like them, so they call it in. On these calls, several times, we are harassed and threatened by some of these people. And I think it's time to change the local law, or the code, whichever you'd like to call it, to allow people to have a fire pit or a fireplace in the backyard. That's all I have.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Further public comment? Seeing none, moving on. Old business we have discussed, requested at the last board meeting. I've really not heard much since, so. Trustees.
I personally don't see any problems with the way it is right now. I don't see at this time expanding it. We did have a gentleman come and ask questions about it. Haven't heard anything since that time, so at this time I myself personally just leave things as they are.
Yeah, I'm there as well. Slightly different reasoning. It appeared to be more of a side business, not the main business, the addition of one license. The amount of time that staff spends, the expense of changing the code, obviously we would want to look at it if it was a full-fledged new business looking to come in to serve a need. Concern was shared that, you know, if you have someone just having one cab on the side, is it going to drain from the actual cab companies that are doing business? and then you eliminate potentially a full-fledged cab business because too many side businesses siphoned off just enough. So I'm not opposed to entertaining something in the future, should there, you know, be a true competitive request or a business need, but I'm just not there right now either to move forward, changing it to allow one additional license. My hope is that maybe there's continued conversations between the appropriate officials from the village and the current cab companies, and if there's a license that's not being used or not needed, maybe they can free one up. But other than that, I'm not looking to do anything myself right now.
Where I'm coming from, where the code is written that each cab is allowed 10 vehicles. So we've got 2 cabs companies, and each got 10 vehicles.
No, that's not true, 10 total.
10 total?
10 total between the village.
10 for the village. Oh, okay, that's 10 correct. So in other words, you could be a little short, but you only have 5, you get a real drain on it. And of course, you can't keep every vehicle 100% up. You have to have maintenance done on it. So apparently there's no, the people who are running the cabs now have no problem with this, right? I'd say they're here tonight to make sure what's going to be taking place. And
I spoke to Mr. Green actually a week or so ago, and he was saying that he might be able to expand his business if we opened it up, but he didn't want to open it up to another company as well.
Oh, okay.
So I guess we're kind of stuck at keeping it at 10.
Okay.
Unless anyone thinks that we should, but that would create a change.
Well,
thank you.
I'd have no problem doing a full expansion. I do want to make sure that any decisions we make don't favor one company over another.
Oh, absolutely.
So my objection isn't that I want to, you know, protect the 2 current cab companies. My objection is more that the request wasn't from a full-fledged taxi company. It was from someone who was looking to make a little side money on his main business, which is not general taxi. You know, so I would be very open to if a business need is there, a business expansion, a new business entrant that is a full-fledged entry, and it can be documented as to why it's needed. I'm open, but I just was taken back that the request was for one. That's why I asked for clarification at the last meeting, because it didn't sound like a full-fledged business. It sounded like, hey, we're here, let's take a little business away during these hours, and I don't want to jeopardize a service that's needed in this community.
Right. And Mr. Green was worried about keeping his employees employed, keeping his business, if other businesses come in and take from his 24/7, you know.
All right, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
So I'm not hearing a motion or an interest to consider it further, so we will remove it from our pending. New business, we have a proposed resolution to accept proposal from an authorized agreement with Center for Government Research in Relations to New York State Department of State Citizen Reorganization Empowerment Grant. So at the recommendation of the Reorganization Study Committee, they are recommending that we hereby accept and award the proposal submitted by the Center for Government Research, CGR, for comprehensive study of local government reorganization at the amount not to exceed $45,000. So moved. Mr. Levere.
Second.
Second by Mr. Carville. Discussion? It's a resolution. Poll individually. Ms. Winston.
Yes.
Mr. Carville.
Aye.
Mr. DeShays.
No comment.
You abstain?
No comment. No.
Here enough?
No.
No. Mr. Levere.
Aye.
Resolution carries. Discussion, establish public hearing date for open burning. Mr. Levere.
Yes, so Chief alluded to this in his public comments, but this has been a discussion recently at a fire committee and with Foreman Hardy as well. Years ago, before my time on this board, the foreman at the time, Foreman McGowan, had worked on a proposed revision for fire and open burning. And the thought process, from my understanding behind that, was it would be better to have the small fires regulated than to have them kind of the Wild West is out there right